Hi everyone, this is a short clip about harmony. Now all harmony is notes that are below a melody that create an accompaniment. There are two different types of harmony, and that could be consonant harmony, which is chords that sound nice underneath, I'll show you that in a minute, and dissonant harmony, which are notes that clash. So for example, a consonant chord would usually include play one, miss a note, play another note, miss a note, and play another note. So we end up with C, miss out D, play E, miss out F, and play G. So we get a chord of C major. That's a consonant chord, or we could have F major, or we could have G major, for example. So they're consonant chords. Now a dissonant chord is where you have two notes that would be next to each other, perhaps, and therefore creating a dissonant, a clash. So for example, if I take a chord that goes like this, or a chord that goes like this, can you hear those notes that are next to each other are creating a dissonance? Okay, so there are dissonant chords and consonant chords. Now, I want to talk a little bit about cadences next. So we'll talk about perfect cadence first of all. There's four different types of cadences. A perfect cadence, and I'd like you to remember this, is chord 5 to 1. Now I'll do all of these in C major because it will be easier for you to gain that understanding first. So in C major, chord 5 is C, D, E, F, G. So it's a G major chord. Now if I play a G major chord, and then I play chord 1, which would be C major, we end up with what we call a perfect cadence. Just listen to what that sounds like. Or chord 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. So 5 to 1, perfect cadence. Now, a plagal cadence is also a complete cadence, one that feels that it's ending like a perfect cadence. The plagal cadence is chord 4 to 1. So let me find in C major, C, D, E, F would be my chord 4. So if I play that, and then I go to chord 1 again, 4 to 1, we end up with a finished cadence, but this one sounds slightly more subtle. Can you hear it? Some people call it the Amen cadence. Amen. So we've got 4 to 1, which is a plagal cadence, and 5 to 1, which is the perfect cadence, okay? So 4 to 1, and 5 to 1. Sorry. Now, there are two other cadences, and those cadences are unfinished cadences. They feel like they want to go home, okay? So the first of which is the opposite to a perfect cadence. That's the imperfect cadence. So that goes chord 1, C major, to chord 5, so the opposite of the perfect. Which, can you feel it? It feels unfinished. It feels like a question mark, or possibly maybe a comma. It wants us to go back home, but it doesn't. So we got, can you hear it wants to go to there, but it doesn't. So we hear chord 1 to chord 5, and then it leaves us hanging. Now you might get those in the middle of a piece at the end of a 4-bar phrase of something like this periodic phrasing, meaning balanced phrases of the classical era, meaning that you can go on with the rest of your piece. Now the final one of those unfinished cadences is the interrupted cadence. Now that's chord 5 to any other chord apart from 1. In this case we're going to look at 5 to 6, and it just basically sounds interrupted. So this is chord 5, G major, and then if we went to chord 6 to A minor, can you hear it? Or that's the question mark one, isn't it? And it kind of leaves us hanging in the air. It leaves us with a question that is unanswered. That's the interrupted cadence. So let's go over those again. We have a perfect cadence, chord 5 to 1. And then we have the plagal cadence, which is 4 to 1. We have an imperfect cadence, which is 1 to 5. And we have an interrupted cadence, which is 5 to 6. Okay? So there's your cadences, and you'll have an assignment on that later. Now, I'd like to just talk about functional harmony as well. Now, in music from the Baroque era, particularly onwards, we come across what we call functional harmony. And that's basically using the chords that belong to that key. So I'm just going to show you in a major key what the chord should be on each degree of the scale. So if I just put the camera down there, if I play a C scale, C major, using all the white notes, so it's a good example, I'm going to play all of the chords using those white notes and see what we come up with. So play one, miss one, play one, miss one, play one, C, miss out D, play E, miss out F, play G, makes a C major chord. So chord 1 is major. Now, if I play chord 2, I end up with D, F and A. Can you hear that's a minor chord? Okay, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about intervals as well, because you need to understand intervals to be able to understand the difference between a major and minor chord just by looking at it rather than hearing it. But I think to hear it, you can hear that's a minor chord. So chord 2 is minor. Chord 3 is E, and that is E minor as well. Can you hear? Because it's E, G and B. If it was major, it would have a G sharp, but it hasn't. It's all white notes, so I've got E minor. Chord 4 is F major. Chord 5 is G major. Chord 6 is A minor. And chord 7 is what we call a diminished chord. And I will talk about that more when we talk about chords separately and talk about that. So chord 7 is a diminished chord. And that's what a functional harmony is. It's that it follows those rules that in that key, if we stay in that key, if we stay diatonic to that key, meaning we only use notes of the key, we will end up with chord 1, 4 and 5 being major chords, chord 2, 3 and 6 being minor chords, and chord 7 always being diminished. Now, as well as those, we can also have things called extended chords as well. So I know you will all know from the blues about chord 5 at the end turnaround to go back to the beginning of the 12-bar blues, we used a dominant 7th. So in C major, chord 1, do you remember this? Then chord 4, chord 1, chord 5, chord 4, chord 1, and do you remember then we went chord 5, 7, and that 5, 7 had a G, a B, a D, and then it was extended by another third, so it added the F on the top, making this not just chord 5, but 5, 7. Can you hear it's got a really strong pull back to chord 1, so 5, 7. Now you can extend chords and keep going, so I could do, while we're on G major, G, B, D, F, but I could also then put an A in there, and this becomes a 5, 9 chord, so G9 we could call it. It's just literally adding that 9th in. You could add an 11th in, which is the C. Now can you hear it's becoming more dissonant, because now you've got notes that clash with each other. For example, you've got a C there as the 11th note of G. It's clashing with the D and the B, which is the 3rd and the 5th of the chord. So what we do when we start to add in jazz extra notes and extend the chords, we tend to miss out a few of the notes so it doesn't clash so much. So we put the 11th in, but perhaps we'll miss the 3rd and the 5th out. So we'll end up with something like that. Okay, so that's what an extended chord is. And then we also have added note chords. For example, something like a sus4 chord. Now, if I was to play a chord of C major, okay, but instead of that third, I wanted to sustain a sound that's then going to clash slightly and then it's going to resolve. So I want to put a sus4 in. So I'm going to play C, D, E, F, which is my 4th, G, and obviously the C on the top, and I'm going to put that. Can you hear how it's making a lovely sustained sound, clashing? And can you hear that that 4th note wants to go to the 3rd? This is used a lot in pop songs, a sus4 chord. So that's a sus4 chord, and that's just so an added note is just a note that doesn't really belong in that chord. But obviously we want to experiment with tone harmony, then we might want to add notes to our chord. But it's a good way of being able to describe what that chord is by saying it's an added note. So I hope this helps, and I hope it helps you to complete your assignment on harmony. Speak to you later.